Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Good morning, Vietnam!
You are great.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious...
You're listening to the 30-something Movie Podcast. Classic movies, 30 years in the making. Welcome to the 30-something Movie Podcast. This time around, we are taking a look at the two movies, The Land Before Time and Oliver and Company. And how are you doing, Jeff?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Pat?
I'm doing wonderful.
Everything all right, guys?
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Bo should be here in just a little bit. So this time around, we are talking those two different movies, but we've got some new movie news to cover first. So I think, Mr. Mazuka, you have the floor, sir.
Well, man, do I have things that I want to talk about.
Go for it.
First of all, I want to jump back to Roger Rabbit.
Okay.
Because I listened to our conversation, and I realized nobody bothered to mention one of the most compelling things about that movie.
Jessica Rabbit?
Is the story. Mm-hmm. I think the story is so well written that you forget you're looking at animated characters. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the reasons why I love the movie as much as I do, is it's not just, I can't believe they did that, or how did they do that? Mm-hmm. But then you lose yourself in the story that's unfolding, and you're no longer thinking about, wow, it's an animated rabbit and a real person.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's well done. In fact, you could almost switch out animated characters for real actors and still have that compelling story. Mm-hmm. So I think they portrayed these animated characters that well for them to, once you get over the shock of seeing what you're seeing, you just forget about all of it, and you start thinking about, wow, what is Cloverleaf, and why are they buying the red car and dismantling it and
it's
all
a good
of
mystery.
This. It's a great mystery.
Yeah.
Also realized the last time I called it Cloverfield.
Oh, did you?
Whole different thing.
Well, that means it's part of the universe, the Cloverfield universe.
That's fantastic.
It is a prequel to Cloverfield. So you find out that in Cloverfield 3, the monster is Roger Rabbit.
Well, I thought you'd find out that the monster is Judge Doom.
It could be. Isn't he dead, though?
Can you really kill it?
Maybe.
Oh, he got dipped.
He got dipped, yeah. Maybe it's Eddie's brother. He didn't really die.
He's got amnesia.
He's been seeking vengeance this entire time.
He's been training.
So he grafted tune parts onto himself.
That's bizarre, but I also kind of like it.
There we go. Cloverfield 3 coming to Netflix next week.
Done. The other sequel idea that I had, because we were talking about what would you do with a sequel, it's something I think it would have to do with hand-drawn animation, handing over the reins to computer animation, and finding ways to still be remembered, even though how they were created is no longer in fashion. They're the old school thing. They're the Atari, as opposed to whatever's out now. I don't play video games. I have no idea.
PlayStation 4,
but
all that stuff.
Is there a way for hand-drawn animation to coexist with computer animation and those characters?
Interesting.
Computer animated characters, do they have some sort of cockiness about them because they're the new hotshot stuff? And, something has to happen that they have to rely on hand-drawn animation and have build some sort of respect for that medium.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. I like that idea.
Well, especially because Roger Rabbit, I mean, not when the movie takes place, it takes place in the 30s and 40s, 30s or 40s, but when it's, when it was actually made in 88 or 87, 88, that's kind of the time where you're starting to get that transition over to some computerized stuff. I know that when we talk about Oliver and Company later in this episode, there are some scenes in Oliver and Company that were done with computer animation, like as for parts of the backgrounds, or I think it was in the chase in the subway. Some of that was computer animated. So you're looking at Disney's old way of animating things and starting to insert in some other computerized stuff. And so you're at that time period where things are starting to kind of shift over, and you're starting to get more and more computer animated stuff. And I feel like you hit like the early to mid 90s, and you started getting cartoons that were the computer animated cartoons. Like I remember that Reboot cartoon that came out. And so, I mean, I think that if they were going to make a sequel, I think that'd be a great way to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking, like, what would be a compelling story in a way that would show appreciation for these characters that we were introduced to 30 years ago that existed 70 years ago.
I feel like it would have the feel of the first time I watched Wreck-It Ralph, where you're kind of paying tribute to all the different video games of the past, and you've got the mixture of the old school video games mixed in with the new video games, and you know, how do you stay relevant when you're one of those old games? And I kind of feel like it have a little bit of a feel of like a Wreck-It Ralph type movie.
I'm going to show my bias with a Pixar thing, and I know that it wasn't the most popular one, but Cars, I think, had a really nice tie-in with the old versus new. When you looked at Cars, I mean, the idea of Doc Hudson, and they kind of framed that within the race car and kind of how, the race car outlives its usefulness, and then, he's forgotten about and everything. And then I'm going to be careful with the spoiler thing, so I'll say spoilers for Cars 3. They actually do that kind of with Lightning McQueen, which, I mean, Cars 3 wasn't the greatest Pixar thing ever. I enjoyed it, but it was cool because Lightning McQueen was the young hotshot, and then by Cars 3, he's trying to deal with that.
He's the Doc Hudson.
Yeah. Did you guys see Cars 3?
Cars 3 was the Rocky 5, but better.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, yeah. And so I think and Toy Story does that a little bit, but just with, there aren't the new cool toys. It's, but they're, what do toys do when people stop playing? So that would be, my bottom line would be, that would be really cool to see that, but with the whole computer generation versus the hand-drawn. And then what new roles? Like, would they learn to coexist? Would the hand-drawn ones operate within a different realm or something?
Yeah, that's what I couldn't figure out, is like, what would be the thing that they would have to go back to the hand-drawn animation characters to help them with, or to have to learn about that, and then because they learn about it, they start gaining a new respect for those characters.
Instead of dip, there's a computer virus.
Well, maybe it's like learning how to see. Do kids really watch? Maybe it would be the learning how to be relevant in the world of, text messaging or something. I mean, you couldn't say video games because those characters are vibrant too, but something in today's day and age that kind of conflicts with sitting down and watching cartoons. Maybe watching YouTube. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. Yeah. But that's cool. That's a cool premise.
Yeah. So I don't know. So I just want to throw out there the idea that a incredibly compelling story.
Yeah.
Being told throughout that movie. And then B, that idea for a sequel, because we were talking about sequels.
Yeah, Roger Rabbit, cool movie.
Yeah.
So next on my list is that I guess there's going to be a live show called Jurassic World Live, in which seemingly life-size dinosaurs are going to move about. And my thought of that is not an original idea. And as I was just showing John some pictures, back in 2008, I went to a show at the United Center called Walking with Dinosaurs, which was based off of a BBC series. Mm-hmm. But they had full animatronic walking, life-size dinosaurs. So I'm wondering if it will be similar to that, or if they happen to acquire those animatronic dinosaurs from someplace. BBC and are going to repurpose them, or how they're going to do what they do. But, I mean, the Walking with Dinosaurs show was absolutely amazing. It was incredible. Like, there were moments where I was just like, I don't know what I'm looking at right now.
Seriously, my kids, I'm excited for my kids right now because my kids love dinosaurs, dragons, anything animal, whatever. So like, if that show ever comes to pass, dude, I'm excited now because I think my kids would love that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I went. You know, I was an adult when I saw this, and I was.
Yeah.
You know, I got scared when all of a sudden the T-Rex came out.
Yeah.
They had a baby T-Rex come out, and it gets cornered, gets trapped, and all of a sudden you just hear a huge roar, and from the other side of the auditorium, the mother T-Rex comes out, and you're just like, oh, it's going to go down.
And you watched it in like an auditorium?
Yeah, it was at the United Center.
At the United Center, okay. Gotcha.
Really well done. Really cool.
Nice.
So, like I said, I don't know if it'll be similar to that, but and I only bring it up because I saw a lot of people commenting on, like, oh, this is such a neat idea. Oh, this is going to be so great. You know, it'll be so cool to see this happen. Like, well, it's happened before. This type of show has been around.
Yeah.
It's too bad you missed out on it when you had the opportunity to see it. But, you know, I guess this will be a way to introduce it to a new generation or use the popularity of the movie to bring this type of technology forward and expose more people to some sort of live presentation as opposed to something they're watching online or a movie or playing a video game or whatever. Just makes it a lot more tangible.
Right.
I think I'd rather go to that than see Jurassic World 2.
Maybe. Yeah, I have a list.
Rocket.
Yeah.
Rocket.
So
Do it.
here we go. Steven Spielberg,
Is
I
this
guess.
a rapid fire round now?
It might be, but I would love to hear
Yeah.
feedback from you guys.
Yeah.
Spielberg is going to be, I guess, doing a remake of West Side Story as a musical.
Okay.
But I guess he's, from what I've read, he's always wanted to do a musical, which is why Temple of Doom started with Anything Goes. That's a genre that he's always wanted to explore.
Okay.
So there's going to be open casting for all parts. I don't know. I know that Spielberg takes good care of characters in his stories or in his movies.
Is it going to be the original book? The original music?
That, from what I hear, they may add one or two new numbers, which happens. But I'm hoping that they don't mess with the music.
It's got to be.
I mean, Bernstein just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
With that music.
Yeah, if it's that, then, this is your stopping grounds, but movies we get all kind of like, oh, they're redoing a movie. But musicals, like, you'll see the show will come back to town with a new cast. And we don't go up in arms and, God, Wicked's back with a new cast. What jerk thought of that? It's like, oh, hey, Wicked's back. Let's go see it. You know, I'm still waiting to go see Hamilton. It probably is some of the new cast and all that kind of stuff, and I'm excited to go, but it's not like, well, shoot, you know what I'm saying? So this is a musical, and
and maybe that's by the nature of a musical being longer running than a movie, that you just kind of expect that if it runs multiple years, that you'd want it to be updated in some way. Well, if you've seen it once and you're going to go back and see it again, then maybe.
Yeah, yes and no.
Because I've seen Les Mis.
Are you going down with the Wizard of Oz?
No.
The one you took the kids to?
No, I wasn't thinking of that, but
right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah,
Because I'm thinking of like Les Mis, and Les Mis being like one of my favorite musicals, and I saw it back in the early '90s in London, and I've seen it probably 5 or 6 times since then in different places.
The last time it came through, there were some changes made to it that we were just sort of like, I don't know.
Because even when the movie version came out, I was like, okay, I know most of these songs, but there's some of these, and I don't remember these songs, but movie. yeah.
When I did take my cast of Wizard of Oz to go see it downtown, I don't know what show it was, but it wasn't Wizard of Oz. Like, it was bizarrely updated.
Okay.
There were just very interesting choices being made to try to make it more interesting and breathe new life into it, which I get on one level, but at the same time, you can't take a classic and redesign it.
Was it the one where they put Jake Lloyd as the main actor and they renamed it That's So Wizard?
No.
Okay.
No.
I made that up.
See, and my take,
nobody wants to see
my
that.
take, it's interesting. You guys went towards like modernizing, quote unquote, a show. I wasn't even going there. I was just saying, like, no, I want to see the same show, different cast.
Okay.
Whereas movies, it's recorded and it's for all time. I mean, you know, like, the cast will get old if...
But once you get a show that's been around for a number of years, the ideology is that people have seen it. So you have to do something different with it to keep people coming back. or to generate new interest. The show I was going to bring up right now is at Drury Lane. They're doing a production of Joseph.
I was just going to ask about Joseph. Okay.
And if you read the Chicago Tribune review, yikes. They set... So, yeah, like, awful.
Really?
I guess the decision was made to set the whole show in Vegas.
Oh,
Wait, what?
Come on.
The role of the narrator, I guess, does her part, but as impersonations of different celebrities.
I miss Donny Osmond.
So you think the one thing that would fit for sure is Pharaoh. The role of Pharaoh is always Elvis.
It's always been Elvis, the king.
Great, perfect for Vegas. No.
Did they change it to Don King?
No, they changed it to Elton John.
What?
So the Pharaoh now has an Elton John persona, which I don't even know how you do.
My head is hurting from the inside.
But you should. I'll see if I can find the review, and send it to you guys. Like it does not like sometimes you
does the review start? I hate this musical.
So almost.
I'm gonna defer to your experience with Broadway and all that. But here's what I'm gonna come down with. I haven't seen Joseph since I was young. Yeah, I was a kid. Donny Osmond was Joseph, and like we all went to get. My mom was so excited. You know, I want to see Joseph. I don't need it to be modernized. I only saw Wicked once. I want to see the same Wicked. You know.
I mean, they can invent a new color for the coat, but other than that, they got to leave it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was just.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, that I just don't.
Okay, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah. So, anyways, I hope Steven Spielberg.
Here's the title of that review. How do you ruin Joseph? Try setting it.
Here's a guidebook.
Try setting it in Vegas.
Well,
and he just goes on to kind of.
We didn't bury that in the lead.
Like just the whole thing is just That's. I'll send you guys the review.
Well, now I'm upset that they ruined the character of Pharaoh.
Who?
Pharaoh.
I don't know who that is.
Pharaoh.
Pharaoh?
Pharaoh.
I don't know Pharaoh.
I felt like this was the time to bring it up.
You would.
I get picked on.
Speaking of Spielberg.
The way I say Pharaoh.
Well, you say it wrong.
Because you're from Tejas?
Maybe.
Speaking of Spielberg, Indy 5 is going to be... They're planning to start shooting in 2019 for a 2020
Is he going to listen to you guys and cut Harrison Ford?
Maybe.
Do I sound like I have a tone? I'm sorry. I'll get rid of my tone. Is he going to listen to your idea and get rid of Harrison Ford?
Indy's a Force Ghost.
Yeah, I don't know.
Indy's going to go back to the... what they're going to do is he's going to go back to the Canyon of the Crescent Moon. He's going to find the Grail. He's going to drink it. It's going to make him young again. They're just going to CGI his face. So he's young Indy all over again. And that's how they're going to do it. So from now on, it's not actually going to be Harrison Ford, but it will be Harrison Ford's digital face on a different actor. That's not true at all. And if it is true...
Everything you just said was untrue.
I mean, I feel like someone somewhere has floated that idea.
I think the character
because it's not unreasonable.
As like a consultant. Like there's a younger archaeologist out there and he needs to consult with, his old professor or whatever.
Yeah.
Tracks down a retired professor and is fed information and coached through certain things by Harrison Ford. I just don't think Harrison Ford can hack running, jumping, swinging from trees.
I'll go back to our earlier conversation that we had maybe like 2 years ago about this, and I will say I don't mind if they decide to go with a different, younger actor. I don't want it to be a sequel. I would rather they treat it like James Bond and just say, this story happens to take place in between Temple of Doom. And I mean, when you do that, that kind of takes away some of the suspense because then he's going to survive. But I kind of wish they would do stuff like that where, just like with James Bond, they've never really, I don't know that they've ever really said, well, this happens at this point in the continuity and this and that. It's just when a new James Bond, we expect that every few years you're going to get a new James Bond. I would have no problem if they decided to do that with Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
If they just decide, okay, for the next 8 years, whoever, I think at one point they were floating Chris Pratt.
The Rock.
Or The Rock. Yeah, sure.
Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel could do it. But for like the next, no, he couldn't do it. For the next 8 years, this person is Indiana Jones. And then we're expecting that the next person's going to come up. And then you just set the stories in, you pick some archaeological thing, some historical thing, and you have that be part of the search. And I feel like you could do it if you do it that way. And then I don't care what actor they have, because then it becomes a James Bond kind of thing.
Yeah, I didn't mind Harrison Ford in Indy 4.
Yeah.
That was the
Just minded the rest of the movie.
That and the motorcycle were the saving grace.
Kingdom of Your Stolen Money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like I thought Harrison Ford, I was fine with him. Now, for me, if it's like so obviously a stunt double, that's just like just looks awkward. But I mean, Mark Hamill looked good as Luke Skywalker playing older.
But I think he was in better shape and still younger than Harrison Ford is now.
I didn't mind Harrison Ford as Han Solo. Maybe.
But again,
but that was that was now what 3 years ago, 4 years ago that they made that movie.
When you think of Indiana Jones and you think of some of the physical issues that the character gets himself into, can you picture Harrison Ford now being dragged under a truck?
Right, but we're making an assumption that they're going to do that in the negative. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
but they should do that,
right?
Because that's what the character does, and if they can't get that character to do that in those stories, I mean, regardless of how old it is, it should still be a pulp story,
right?
And there should be these elements of this situation, this situation.
I guess I wouldn't mind seeing Harrison Ford like. I guess I wouldn't. I wouldn't get tired of seeing Harrison Ford on stage if he's not the one being dragged by the truck. Maybe he's maybe there's more of the shtick where the guy jumps out with the sword and he.
So again,
back to your point, as
if they bring Harrison Ford in as Indy and he's consulting or helping someone maybe from afar, find something or deal with whatever the MacGuffin is, then I could see that and I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
I just don't want to see them try to put Harrison Ford in the position of being Indy, doing what Indy does, because I just don't think it would work well at this point with the age that he is.
To me, it wasn't even believable in the last Indiana Jones movie. Mm-hmm. Like there were several times they played off that joke. I think he said stuff like, it was almost like a Murtaugh, I'm too old for this kind of stuff, and I was like, okay, well that's funny a couple times, but then if you're even if you write that into the character, then I think it's kind of time to move on to somebody else, because this is an action movie, and if your action star can't perform the action,
which they might have been trying to do with Shia,
right, and I think they were trying to make Indy they were trying to transition him.
He went crazy.
Right. I think they were trying to transition him into the Sean Connery type role of being the father, and maybe they could have an adventure or two where it's a father and son thing, but then that movie just didn't work, and Shia went crazy and. Did his thing.
Well, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. So, Oscar nominations came out recently. Did you guys have any thoughts on nominations or snubs?
Glad to see The Last Jedi got in there for a few of them. Logan got in there for
Logan got in there for one.
Logan got in there.
I was excited.
Mm-hmm.
Dunkirk's. I don't know much about the snubs and who got what. Dunkirk's in for a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Shape of Water, I think, has 13 nominations. I haven't seen it yet. I'm excited to see it. I like most of what Bill Del Toro does. Mm-hmm. So, and it looks like this harkens back more to the fantasy horror, like with Pan's Labyrinth. Devil's Backbone.
Yeah, I think his best movies are his in between movies. When he does that, he goes and he makes the Pacific Rim, so he gets the money to make the one he really wants to make.
Yeah. So, so I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
Just watched The Big Sick, which is up for
that was good.
Screenplay.
I like that.
Really liked it.
Yeah.
I said that to you the other day. You should definitely check that out. It's streaming on Amazon Prime right now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Snubs, no nomination for Spielberg for The Post.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Meryl Streep was I think the only one that got a nomination out of that movie.
Okay.
And no nomination for Tom Hanks, who was also in that movie playing opposite Meryl Streep. I heard it mentioned that perhaps that movie was a little bit too tailor-made for the Oscars.
Okay.
Spielberg directed film starring Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep. Was it a little bit too much, almost on the nose, to be like, well, of course people are going to look at this as an Oscar-nominated movie because it's
maybe, yeah,
all these people that you would expect. I haven't seen it. I don't know.
I don't know enough about the Oscar. I don't like subjective kind of stuff because then it's always like, I like sports where there's a stopwatch, where there's, whenever you get into the judging thing, I always don't know enough to, was it a snub, was it not a snub, and maybe the snubs are good because then we're all talking about is it a snub or not, like that kind of thing, but I don't know.
Some nice surprises came out of it, though. I think seeing Get Out being up for Best Director, Best Actor, Best Picture, I think, too.
Oh, really?
I haven't seen that one either, and that's been on my list since it came out. I wanted to see it. So it was nice to see some a quote unquote smaller movie, not as artistic movie, get some recognition in a huge way like that. So yeah,
cool.
Aaron Sorkin's up for Best Adapted Screenplay.
I saw that.
Which, do we just call that the Aaron Sorkin Award? Or
just give it time.
I don't know.
Not at the expense of Logan.
Well.
Oh, yeah, they're head to head.
Same, yeah.
I always need a reason to throw my remote at this TV screen.
Can you write a good walk and talk for Logan?
Sure.
He's a man of few words, though.
Well, I mean, Professor Xavier could, not so much walking.
Wheel and talk?
Could you do a roll and talk? Roll and talk, yeah.
That's awful. Anyway.
It's not the worst thing we've said today.
Oh, my. Anyway.
It doesn't say much for us, but...
Speaking of Tom Hanks, going to play Mr. Rogers in an upcoming biopic.
My family's very excited about this.
I'm ecstatic about this. I don't know if you guys have seen that I think it's the entire series of Mr. Rogers is now streaming on Amazon Prime.
Oh, cool.
Did they bring the whole series? Okay.
I'm tempted to go back and start at the beginning and just watch all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy is, he's on my wall of people that inspire me. Just his ideas of how to approach children as adults, really, and don't talk down to them and don't lie to them and treat them as equals in that you help them learn and understand. And that doesn't happen when you hide them from truths. You talk to them about truths and guide them through. On YouTube, you can find his argument to a panel of congressmen, I think, or senators that they were going to cut funding for PBS. And his argument alone turned him around and said, we're going to instead continue to fund. You read stories of how he was in his everyday life with everyday people. And you just think, God, if I could live to be one small % of the man he was, I'd be happy with who I turned out to be. Yeah. So the idea that they're bringing his story to life in a big way with, one of the better actors that you could find.
Tom Hanks is awesome.
Yeah.
I want to check out his book, The Typewriter, where he wrote a book about a typewriter or something like that.
He collects typewriters.
Yeah, I heard
that's his thing.
I don't want to digress too much, but just he seems like a very fascinating person.
But yeah, and Sharon has read the book that this movie's going to be based off of. The guy that kind of got to know Mr. Rogers and was writing his biography. And I think the book is called, I'm Proud of You or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
She's read the book and she said it's a really good book.
It's going to go towards the top of my list, I think.
Yeah.
Once I finish Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Cloverfield. Going to Netflix, it looks like.
I heard about that.
Paramount Studios, I think. Someone just recently took over and was going through the slotted movies for upcoming theatrical releases and deciding, yes, this one's going to go in theaters, no, this one's not. And it looked like Cloverfield 3 was not going to get the theatrical release anymore, and somehow Netflix got involved, and
we'll take it.
It looks like they might be getting the entire Cloverfield franchise, which, okay, cool. I dig those movies.
Which is why they're raising my Netflix rate $1 a month going forward.
If it's to get Cloverfield, then here's my $1.
There you
go.
Yeah. What else do I have on here? Clue remake, starring Ryan Reynolds. Don't know in what capacity, don't know as what character, but that's coming down the pipeline. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know that we need a Clue remake.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Didn't they do the one with the teenagers on the Disney Channel not that long ago?
I
feel like they did a made-for-TV Clue remake, and it was not good.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I'm fine if they want to. I'm not gonna. I don't know that I'm gonna rush out to go see it when it comes out. I mean, I might check it out. Ryan Reynolds. I like Ryan Reynolds. I think he's a funny guy, so I will definitely go check it out when it comes out, unless the preview looks really stupid.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how it plays out. I really like Clue. I mean, it's semi-remake of Murder by Death,
Right.
which I also really like. So I don't know. I don't know what you do with it to try to make it new or different, or do you just try to, do you try to copy? I don't know how you
Replace
can.
Mrs. White with Dr. Tulip, and you get rid of the revolver.
That's Dr. Orchid, I think.
Dr. Orchid,
Dr.
that's
Orchid,
right.
Yeah. We just bought Clue
Okay.
like a few weeks ago because
Yeah.
we didn't have a copy of it, and the new one has Dr. Orchid.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
What?
Dr. Orchid, no more
no
revolver.
more,
There's like poison and
Yeah, there's not. They got rid of. Well, I want to say
Well,
the revolver might still be there.
the lead pipe.
Yeah.
It's a baseball bat and a poison as opposed to the lead pipe and the
Okay.
wrench or something. You
Something-
have it. I haven't
yeah,
gotten it yet.
I gotta look and see, but
So
yeah.
this is the new game.
Yeah,
the
there's,
new
there's
version
a new
of the game.
character. There's a Dr. Orchid. Is the new character.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's a thing.
And there's some other parts of it that are different from the old, though I don't know for sure because the old version that I always used to play was the British version called Cluedo.
Yeah.
And it had totally different rules and other stuff going on. So when we bought this new one, this is like the new updated American version.
Yeah. Well, all I know is when I play with
remember.
when I play with Dominic, he has to be his favorite color, but he wants to be a different guy. So like he picks the blue color, but it's Colonel Mustard.
Okay.
And I'm just like, dude, you gotta be. He's like, no, I want to be Colonel Mustard, and blue's my favorite color. I was like, okay, well, I can't argue with your logic. So, and so then I'll be like, okay, is it Colonel? That's not Colonel Mustard.
Colonel
Well,
Mustard's-
wait a minute. Oh,
Colonel
wait,
Mustard's
no.
wearing a blue shirt today.
Yeah, and so I mean, and it's like the board. I'm like totally messed up. But anyways, so yeah, I'm just like, whatever.
You guys ever played Museum Capers?
Mm-mm.
Oh, that's a good one.
Is that a game or is that?
Oh, okay. It's a game.
Okay.
It's almost like a strategy game. You
fun.
You are a burglar trying to get into a museum and steal artwork, and the other players on the board can't see exactly where you are, but they, based on what you've taken, they can kind of determine your location. So they have to try to trap you, and
cool.
It's really neat.
Nice. I'll keep that in mind.
My brother was telling me about a game that he played recently that he really enjoyed. It's called Last Christmas. Have you heard of this one?
No.
It is, and these are like the type of games.
Well, last Christmas I gave you my heart.
But the very next day,
you threw it
gave
away.
This year, to keep me from tears, I'm going to give it to somebody special.
You ready, Pat?
Special.
What you guys
Anyway,
do you need to turn the lights out and I can
smoke them if you got them.
We're going to turn the lights out when we start talking about Land Before Time because my eyes are going to start leaking. No, this game called Last Christmas, my brother said he's played it with some friends, and the premise of the game is, he said it's a little bit like Clue. It's got some elements to Clue in it, but the idea is you play as one of the three ghosts from the Christmas Carol story, or you play as Jacob Marley. And the idea is you went to go kind of scare Scrooge straight, and you gave him a heart attack. And he died.
As you do.
As you do. And the problem with that is somehow Scrooge being alive was holding the apocalypse at bay. So the end of the world occurs because Scrooge is dead.
Oh.
You now have to go back in time and manipulate events from the history of Scrooge's
that
life.
Chapter.
Well, it's not in the. Yeah, it's not in the book.
Okay.
No. Apparently, you have to go back in time and you have to re-manipulate events from Scrooge's history in order to prevent it from happening, prevent his death. So I haven't looked into it yet, but my brother's describing it to me, and I'm like, you know what? That's just weird enough. I may need to go check that out.
We got Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. What the heck, man?
Yeah.
Who's to stand on?
Next thing on my list, we're almost there. Muppet Babies is returning to TV in March. However, they've removed the character of Skeeter, which was the twin sister created for the show, the twin sister of Scooter. Apparently
there was time travel and she was never born.
They were looking. I was trying to understand their logic. They created the character to play opposite of Miss Piggy being dramatic and crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And Skeeter was supposed to be the female that was rational and logical and smart, and I don't know why they felt the need to remove her from the show and then replace her with an entirely new character or different character named Summer Penguin.
Because this is 2018 and we're not into being rational, logical, and smart anymore.
Okay.
State of the Union's a night. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. I got some new movie news I want to talk about.
Wait, skewed up.
Okay, I'm going to shut up.
Yeah. An entirely different tangent.
Mm-hmm.
Summer Penguin.
Summer Penguin. Yeah, so...
Contradiction in
Summer
process.
Penguin. I don't know
So,
what...
so this comes out in March. Would you guys watch it just out of nostalgia's sake to see what this new... Because we talked a little bit
What
about...
channel is it going to be on?
I think Disney Channel.
I don't know.
I just keep thinking if I was going to be an exotic dancer, Summer Penguin might be my name.
I'm definitely going on...
Did you just size me up?
I'm going on...
I did. And I would not go
I'm sorry.
I would not go as Summer Penguin.
I'm going on Urban Dictionary to find out what Summer Penguin is on that. I'm
Awkward pear shape, is that?
Jeez.
Getting there.
Okay.
Winter Walrus.
Grapefruit.
I mean, I might...
I'll watch it because I loved Muppet Babies as a kid, and
As did I, and with the DuckTales reboot that's come out.
DuckTales has been a lot of fun. I watched that with the kids.
I'd be willing to see what they how this new idea or this new concept for Muppet Babies plays out.
But you played like a little behind the scenes thing for us where they're talking about it. They're like, Summer Penguin is, she doesn't like to do things the way anybody else does. She does things her own way, and I'm sitting there going, doesn't that define all the Muppets?
Every Muppet kind of
they
does.
all are up for anything, and they're kind of wacky and crazy. And
last thing on my list, early reviews of Black Panther
buddy.
are seemingly very positive.
Cool.
So I'm very excited to go see this. I don't want to get my hopes up, but my hopes are up, especially also with the trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
Also looks incredible.
I'm a big fan of Ant-Man, so I like that one.
I just have one question. When Cap needed help, if I'd asked you, would you have come?
I guess we'll never know. But if you had, you'd have never been caught.
I do some dumb things, and the people I love the most, they pay the price.
Thanks to you, we had to run. We're still running.
Let's go.
Maybe you just need someone watching your back. Like a partner.
Hold on. You gave her wings and blasters. So I take it you didn't have that tech available for me? No, I did.
So that's it. That's all I have on my list. There's 40 minutes of new movie news.
There's a lot happening.
There we go. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Well,
we haven't done new movie news.
Yeah,
in a
I
while,
realized
so,
too. It's been a long time since we've had any sort of new movie news discussions or anything being thrown out there. So there you go.
Yeah.
Those of you listening, thank you for listening.
So I think we're going to let's go into some of the background info on our two movies we're going to be talking about this time, and then we will be back after that to talk about The Land Before Time and Oliver and Company. First one is The Land Before Time, the Don Bluth classic. It was released on the 18th of November, 1988, rated G, 1 hour and 9 minutes. Director was Don Bluth, who also did The Secret of Nim and An American Tale. Produced by Don Bluth, who also did the Dragon's Lair video game and Space Ace, as well as All Dogs Go to Heaven. Also produced by Gary Goldman, who did The Secret of Nim and All Dogs Go to Heaven, and John Pomeroy, who did The Secret of Nim and All Dogs Go to Heaven, as well as others. One thing to note here is that very heavily executive producing this movie were Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later as we were talking about the movie. Writers on this one were Stu Krieger, who did the screenplay, also did Where the Boys Are and Monkey Trouble. Judy Freudberg, who did the story, died in 2012, also did Sesame Street and An American Tail. Tony Geiss, who did the story, also died in 2011, did Sesame Street and An American Tail. Music was composed by James Horner, who died in 2015, who also did such movies as Titanic, The Rocketeer, Star Trek II. We've talked about those before. A ton of stuff. Box office on this one, don't have any information on the budget, but the box office on this one was $84.4 million. It was, I believe, the highest grossing movie. Let's see, I had that in my notes here. Yes, The Land Before Time was the highest grossing animated movie of all time before the release of The Little Mermaid. So kudos to them for doing an amazing job with that. The cast, starring Judith Barcy, who died in 1988 at the age of 10. That's a very sad story. Her father murdered her a few months before this movie came out at the age of 10. She played Ducky. She was also in Jaws the Revenge and All Dogs Go to Heaven. Pat Hingle, who died in 2009, was the narrator and Rooter. He was Commissioner Gordon in the Batman '89 movie and some of the subsequent Batman movies of that era, and was also in Maximum Overdrive. Gabriel Damon played Littlefoot. He was in RoboCop 2 and Newsies. Helen Shaver played Littlefoot's mother. She was in The Craft and the Amityville Horror. Bill Irwin, who died in 2010, was the grandfather. He was in Home Alone, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Burke Burns was Daddy Tops, Sarah's father. He was in Airplane 2 and Child's Play 3. Candace Hudson was Sarah. She was in The Land Before Time movies 1 through 4 and a TV series called Evening Shade. Will Ryan played Petrie. He was in An American Tail and The Little Mermaid. Frank Welker played Spike, the Sharptooth, and the Domeheads gang, providing sound effects for those. He was in the Transformer movies and the Scooby-Doo cartoons, among many, many others. Diana Ross played the Balladeer. She was uncredited for the movie, but she did some of the singing parts. She was in The Wiz and Lady Sings the Blues. Critics on this one has a 70% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience rating is a 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb, a 4 out of 5 on Common Sense Media, and a 78% for the audience on Rotten Tomatoes. It was nominated for a Saturn Award and Young Artist Award.
George Lucas and Steven Spielberg present a Don Bluth film, The Land Before Time. Long ago, when the Earth was new, 5 friends, lost and alone,
Mother, where are you?
took an incredible journey
You want to go with me? Yeah!
through a land of wonder and a land of danger.
I hope he doesn't eat any of you! Quick, this way!
From the creators of An American Tale comes a story of friendship,
Do not stop! We must stay together!
courage,
Oh, you can't quit now! What if the Great Valley is just over the top of these rocks?
and laughter. From Universal Pictures,
Some things you see with your eyes, others you see with your heart.
a new adventure is born. The Land Before Time.
Oliver and Company, some information on that one. It came out on the 16th of April, 1988. Rated G with a runtime of 1 hour and 13 minutes. Directed by George Scribner, who also did a short of The Prince and the Pauper for Disney and was an animator on the Smurfs cartoon in 1981 and The Black Cauldron. Jim Cox was one of the writers. He also did Rescuers Down Under and Fern Gully. Tim Disney, who also wrote A Question of Faith. And James Mangold, who did Walk the Line and one of Pat's personal favorites, Logan. Music was done by J.A.C. Redford, who did Newsies and D2 The Mighty Ducks. The budget for this one was $31 million, the box office $74.2 million. Joey Lawrence played Oliver. He was also in Radioland Murders and the TV series Blossom. Whoa. Billy Joel played Dodger. And this is his only acting credit other than being in some of his own music videos as bit parts here and there. Natalie Gregory played Jenny. She was in the Alice in Wonderland in 1985. I think it was the TV movie version of it, and Magnum P.I. Cheech Marin played Tito. He was in Born in East L.A. and Up in Smoke. Bette Midler played Georgette. She was in Hocus Pocus and Beaches. Robert Loggia, I think that's how you say his last name, died in 2015. He was Sykes. He was in Big and Independence Day. Richard Mulligan, who died in 2000, was Einstein. He was in Soap, the TV series, and Little Big Man. Roscoe Lee Brown died in 2007. He was Francis. He was in Jumpin' Jack Flash and Babe. Cheryl Lee Ralph played Rita. She was in Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit, and The Flintstones. That is the movie version of it with John Goodman and Rick Moranis. Dom DeLuise, who died in 2009, played Fagin. He was in Blazing Saddles and An American Tail. William Glover played Winston. He was in To Be or Not to Be. And Frank Welker was also in this one. He played Carlo and Louis the Sausage Vendor, as well as providing other sound effects and things throughout the movie. He was also in Transformers and Scooby-Doo, as we said earlier, for the other movie. The critical reception for this one, a 44% on Rotten Tomatoes. Siskel gave it a thumbs down. Ebert gave it a marginal thumbs up. Ebert said that this one is harmless and inoffensive, and Siskel was quoted as saying, when you measure this film to the company's legacy of classics, it doesn't match up. It has a 62% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes, was nominated for a Golden Globe and a Grammy. A couple of quick background things on here. This one, so let's see, I did skip one thing from The Land Before Time, but we'll talk about this as the guys, we have our discussion together about the movies. Don Bluth was not a fan, well, he was a fan of this movie, but this he kind of recognizes as the start of his decline. Because of the studio interference in this movie and the extensive cuts that were done to this movie, he feels like this is kind of the start of his creative decline. Oliver & Company, this was not released to home video until 1996. It took them a really long time to get this one out to video. The Oliver & Company was originally intended as a sequel to 1997's The Rescuers, but they made a few changes and decided to make it its own separate movie. And if you look closely, in Oliver & Company, characters from 101 Dalmatians and Lady and the Tramp can be seen during the opening segment of the movie.
Walt Disney has turned great stories into unforgettable animated motion pictures. Now the tradition continues as Walt Disney Pictures proudly presents a new twist on the classic story of Oliver.
Pussycat, come on, let's eat him. I love a story with food in it.
Oliver, the little orphan who fell in with Fagin, the Dodger, and a gang of canine con artists out to take New York for all it's worth.
It's worthless.
What kind of work do we do anyway?
Investment banking, man. Stop, thief. Let's get out of here.
Oliver, the heroic kitten who was catapulted into a whole new world.
What is the meaning of this?
Oh, Georgette. I see you met Oliver.
The little furball.
Only to be rescued
Oliver!
by his gang of friends.
I just want to go back.
Back with his Uncle Tito.
Walt Disney Pictures presents our 27th full-length animated motion picture, featuring songs performed by Billy Joel, Huey Lewis, Ruth Pointer, and Bette Midler.
Hey, Frankie, get down.
Your family is cordially invited to meet our new family. Oliver, Jenny, Georgette, Tito, the Dodger, Fagin, Rita, and Sykes, the vicious villain determined to destroy Oliver. They're all together in a holiday entertainment event you'll never forget.
Absolutely, positively.
Walt Disney Pictures, Oliver and Company.
All right, so our first movie this time is going to be The Land Before Time. I'm going to go ahead and just say, and I think I've said this before we started recording, is I will burst into tears at the drop of a hat while talking about this movie. Because it gives me, as the kids say, all the feels. So, now that that's known. So, we start off with the movie, and we learn that because of a drought, this forces several herds of dinosaurs to seek a place known as the Great Valley. We get introduced to the different dinosaurs and kind of their respective species. We have the long necks, the three horns, the spike tails, the swimmers, the flyers. We get introduced to the sharp tooth, which is the T-Rex that ends up kind of attacking the kids at the beginning of the movie. One of the things at the beginning, especially watching it this time around as an adult, I was starting to notice like some of the different themes that this movie plays on. I don't know that I noticed those themes as a kid, but definitely this time around, just the whole idea of the different tribes not getting along with each other. Mm-hmm. Like that being a whole piece to the movie was that, well, they don't get along, and this movie is going to teach you about teamwork and about getting along with others and working with people that are different from you. And obviously as a kid, we don't pick up on those themes necessarily, and even if we do, it's maybe subconsciously. I do like one thing about this movie as they get you introduced to all this are the different terms that they would use for things. Like instead of a leaf, it's a tree star. Or instead of a brontosaurus, it's a long neck. Or even as a kid, I kind of thought that was kind of clever and poetic to come up with different terms for things rather than just saying this is a leaf. So very, very kind of early on, we get the story of these dinosaur kids hatching and being born and growing up, and we get the sense that this is kind of a rare occurrence, especially for the long necks, that Littlefoot was born. This is maybe their first or their only child that was hatched in a very long time, kind of the last little section of their tribe there. Now,
there's no father.
Right. So basically, his midichlorian count is very high.
It's mom and grandparents.
Right.
Well, there's no...
He's the chosen one.
Sequels, I'm just going to say.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
because
well, no, I actually was about to ask you, because have you seen any of the sequels? I have not seen any of the sequels, but you have seen all of them.
Well, my kids have seen up to Land Before Time 15.
Right.
Don't blame your kids.
And, well, I saw Land Before Time 1, and Tam's like, I think we're going to watch this. I'm like, are you sure? She goes, yeah. I'm like, dude, it's really sad. I cried.
Call your wife, dude.
Yeah. Nice. I call everybody dude. And she says...
dude abides.
Dude abides. And then she watched, she goes, no, the kids were okay. Yeah, there was some...
bowling.
But then every time we go to the library, the kids are like, wow, Dad, look, there's like 10 more Land Before Time movies. And so, so the spoiler... They actually eventually meet up with the dad.
Oh,
They find the dad, and then there's a whole component about that.
It's played by Kurt Russell.
It is,
and then you find out the dad actually killed the mom.
Right, not quite, but there's a whole story in and around that.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. Anyway,
hanging on a tree star.
13 sequels total, apparently.
Yeah, so I think in like Land Before Time.
And I did not know that. I knew there was 2 and 3. I think I've seen 2 and 3.
Is there enough
but
story
beyond that,
for that many sequels? Well, apparently.
They keep it
sure,
episodic.
You just focus on,
My kids like it.
Yeah.
And I know like when they meet up with his dad, there's like the whole like he's adopted other people, so does Littlefoot really, is that dad and I'm going to go live with him, or I'm used to living with these people and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting.
Starts hanging out with Ducky a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. What's up? Biceratops?
All right, but if this conversation goes into like talking about furries, I'm out. I'm just saying. Okay, I'm just saying.
No. We're not going to the whole furry thing. Okay. But no, I was going to ask you.
Interesting, that comment coming from Pat of all people.
I know. You're a very furry man.
I'm a furry man, but I different than the furries with the. Okay.
That's different. Okay.
Different.
Okay. And that's like Land Before Time.
That's like Land Before Time, because I was going to ask you, this movie, and this is the only movie I have seen of this one, and you get to see all of the characters being born. Like you see them get hatched out of their eggs, and this is them growing up. And for someone who has seen all of the other movies, it seems like. It just seems like those scenes in particular, when you see each one of them hatch and like see their mother for their first time or whatever, it just seems very sweet and very special. And when you look at this one in terms of looking at like all the other 14 or 15 that were made or whatever it is, does this one still is this one still the one that's like, yes, this is the classic, this is the...
And I'm going to say there were some that the kids were watching and it was like I was in the other room doing laundry or getting dinners ready, like some. But I will say that, this one seems to have the most punch to it. Mm-hmm. The other ones sometimes are lighter, they're almost more musical. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there'll be more singing of songs and all this. And
this is the only one that isn't a musical.
Okay, is that true? Okay, then I got that right.
Okay.
It's just lighter stories. And this one seems to be kind of the heaviest story. And in the other ones, they'll find the Great Valley, then they got to leave the Great Valley and find some other place, and they do it. They explore a little bit more, like Sarah... as opposed to, we don't mix triceratops and long necks or whatever.
Three horns.
Three horns, but then they long to They find a way to try and cross that bridge, and so it goes from the we don't mix to Littlefoot trying to win approval from Sarah's dad. Like those kinds of things, and the different parents help. There were those themes that they would kind of explore, but nothing had the same kind of poignancy of
Do they believe in interspecies dating?
I don't think it goes to that depth.
Going out with a few rats. That's what you mean.
Thank you for...
Good pickup.
I was hoping somebody would pick that up.
There it is. Call back to the Muppets.
There we go. So I always think of this one as like, particularly those scenes, the way the movie starts out, it's just like, I don't know, even as a kid, there was something very special about this. It was just very sweet and very innocent, and then you go from sweet and innocent to the sharp tooth shows up, and I remember as a kid still just being terrified by this, and to find out that the original cut of this movie, and Don Bluth apparently says he has the original cut sitting somewhere, and whether or not he's ever going to release it, he hasn't said, but the original cut of this movie, I guess, was...
still alive?
Yeah. The original cut of this movie was 19 minutes longer, and that it was cut shorter, particularly by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, because they felt like some of the stuff he had included was a little too dark for kids. And so there were scenes of like point of view shots of the sharp tooth coming at you and like snapping his jaws, and there were other like some of the scenes where the sharp tooth jumps onto Littlefoot's mother's back and bites her. Like you see it as a silhouette, but they actually did it where it's full color and you can see the whole thing. And
it's 80 years old.
Yeah, he's up there, but he's still around. But yeah, so apparently it was a much darker movie. Had some parts I guess were maybe just a little heavier emotionally, which I already think that this movie has a lot of emotion to it. But that was something that I thought was kind of interesting, was how intense and scary some of those scenes were. Even the cut down scenes. I remember as a kid being terrified of the sharp tooth, and how you actually felt like these characters were in danger and you worried about these characters. I don't know that I watched too many other cartoons or even Disney movies where I actually feel dread for the characters. The only other time I can think of is maybe Lion King with Mufasa. But this one in particular, like every time that sharp tooth shows up, I almost felt like this was almost like a Jaws for kids. Like every time that sharp tooth shows up, you're terrified for what's going to happen. And so then obviously we get to the point where the kids are playing and Sharptooth attacks, and Littlefoot's mother comes to the rescue, and she ends up getting fatally wounded, and then an earthquake happens and kind of swallows up the Sharptooth. And
that was a hard scene.
Yeah, and so then Littlefoot goes in the rain and finds his mother, who is laying there dying. And I've heard this referred to as like the Bambi, but with dinosaurs.
Sure.
So, strangely enough, that's what Spielberg wanted to do. Mm-hmm. He wanted to create
he did it.
a Bambi, but using dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And in some of the stuff that I read, I think I read it on IMDb maybe, one of the initial ideas is that this movie wouldn't have any dialogue. Mm-hmm. And it would all be underscored, much like the dinosaur sequence from Fantasia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let the instruments do all the talking for the characters, and the orchestration do all the talking for the characters.
I really enjoyed the music in this. I thought you mentioned the orchestra. I mean, I thought the music.
Horner?
Yeah. I remember watching the movie and being like, "Wow, the music is really good." And I'm thinking, I haven't watched this. I have not watched this since I was a little kid, and I'm listening, and I remember the music. Like I vividly remember this music. It's ingrained in my head, and I'm like, this music sounds so familiar too. And then when I didn't look it up, and then when it got to the credits and it said James Horner, I'm like, okay, well that explains why I enjoy it, and why it sounds familiar. And but yeah, then that obviously is a very heavy emotional scene where his mother dies, and I kind of feel like I was surprised at just how much as an adult that scene still got me. I think I cried as a kid, and I'm pretty certain I might have leaked a little bit in the eyeballs. as an adult.
Mhm.
And I think I told you this about my daughter.
Mhm.
I was watching it with my wife and my daughter, and she's 7. And, normally she has no problem showing emotion or telling when she's sad or something like that. And she's sitting with me and we're watching the movie, and all of a sudden she's sitting on top of me in my chair while we're watching the movie, and I kind of feel her tense up a little bit. I was like, "Are you okay?" And she just goes, "I'm just really tired." I said, "Okay, well, do we want to stop the movie and go to bed?" No, I'm just really tired. And I look over at my wife sitting in the other chair, and she's kind of smiling. She's like, "That means she's sad. Like, that means she's maybe crying."
Mhm.
Like, that's what she's said lately when she is sad about something, and she just like pretends that she's really tired, so nobody has to know that she's sad or crying about something. And so I asked her, I paused the movie, I'm like, if you're upset, if you're crying, that's okay, because Daddy's kind of crying too. And she's like, I'm not crying. I wasn't crying.
You're the one who's crying.
You're the one who's crying. Don't turn that light on. You're the one that's crying.
When you put your arm around her to try and cuddle her in, will she take it, or does she get like no?
No, she just when I brought it to her attention, and I was like, "Are you crying? Are you sad?" She just kind of got real defensive, and I was like, "It's totally okay."
She's too cool for that.
Dad's a grown man, and I'm tearing up.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Dad's a growing man.
It's the man part we're having trouble with, John.
Growing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rough bunch.
Okay. All right. I am going to take all the dialogue I've ever recorded, any of you say, and I'm going to totally re-edit it all together to make you all look bad.
That's amazing.
You know why that's such an empty threat? Because we all know you don't have that kind of time on your hands.
I'm kind of okay with this, because I think that would be an amazing
Right?
show.
Cool.
I would like that.
Mm-hmm. It's just, I'm going to create like a Max Headroom character out of all of you.
That would be fun.
Okay.
Anyway,
moving on.
So that's very much like Land Before Time.
You all suck. Okay. Much like Littlefoot's mother, you're all dead to me. Okay.
Ooh, nice segue. I think.
Wow.
Okay then.
That's right. I'm going to bring the heat here.
Well, much like Sarah, you're acting like a little bitch.
Also true.
I can't argue with that.
That was one comment my wife made when we were watching this. She goes, "Oh, Sarah's actually a bitch." Which, like, yeah, she kind of is.
Yeah.
Which is funny because, and I'm not going to say this about my sister because I'm not going to say that that's how she acts. But at the time when we were growing up, no, there's a point to this.
I would like to stress that John's viewpoints are his own.
Yeah, and not necessarily the viewpoints of the 30-something movie podcast.
Even though he tweets on our behalf,
Yeah.
he does not speak on our behalf.
No. My sister's name is Sarah. And watching this as a kid, like some of Sarah's stubbornness and her other qualities, we used to just kind of joke and be like, okay, I understand why the Triceratops name is Sarah. Nice. Because she's a lot like you.
Would that fire her
And
up?
I think, as a kid, yes. As an adult, she'd probably look at that and be like, yeah, I am. I'm totally like Sarah. And that was kind of...
Three horns don't play with long necks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's kind of like a stubborn confidence kind of thing. But yeah. So the irony of her being named Sarah and my sister being named Sarah.
She was confident right until that T-Rex wasn't dead.
Right until she just about poked
She's
in the eye.
already banging her head against the rock until...
So as we, as Littlefoot then goes on from there, he meets Rooter, the club tail, who kind of gives him some sage advice. And you bowing out?
I hate to say it, but
No,
I
that's
gotta
right.
go get Dominic from youth group and all that
Go
kind of
for
thing.
it.
But it was a pleasure discussing with you. I look
Bring him
forward-
back.
Pardon me?
Bring him
He
back.
could be on the
We'd love
podcast.
to hear his
Get
perspective.
his perspective on. Yeah, he would love it. He hasn't watched the other one yet. The Oliver with dogs. But
He's not missing much.
yeah. But Land Before Time, they are definitely high on that, and love dinosaurs, and the kids gave it a definite thumbs up. So
Who doesn't love dinosaurs?
darn tootin'. We'll see you guys later. It was good to see you all. Take care. And I look forward to hearing my comments off the air, or hearing your comments off the air.
So let me tell you why what Pat said was wrong.
And always is.
All right, so then Littlefoot goes on. He meets Ducky and Petrie.
Go ahead and fire Indiana or Harrison Ford for Indiana Jones. You see what I think about that? That's all I'm saying.
So he does meet Ducky and Petrie, who start to go along with him on his journey.
Yep.
And then Sarah, who kind of goes off on her own, ends up, as we said, she ends up finding the Sharptooth, who you think is dead in the one scene, and that was a big mistake.
Yeah.
To tempt fate like that. And
yeah, well, you never poke a sleeping bear. Isn't that what it is? You never poke a sleeping T-Rex.
Let sleeping T-Rexes lie.
Yeah, in general, that's a good.
It's a good philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, they are short-armed and dangerous. So, little, yeah.
We meet the Robinsons. The T-Rex is like, I have a big head and little arms. There's a T-Rex chasing somebody. I think it was that movie. I have a big head and little arms.
It's outstanding.
Whoever thought of this plan didn't really think it through.
So she's running away from the Sharptooth. She obviously runs into the rest of them, and she tells them the Sharptooth is alive, but Littlefoot obviously does not believe her because he believes the Sharptooth to have died in the earthquake. They end up finding Spike, and he kind of gets added into their little group there. As they continue to go seeking out the Great Valley, they do find a little cluster of trees, which they first mistake for the Great Valley, but obviously it is not. It is a great nothing. And they
gets eaten in about 30 seconds.
Had a little snack there, and that part was devastating as a kid too. And be like, what? They found it first. Like I remember as a kid being really worried that the rest of those dinosaurs came in and got their tree. I didn't think that was very fair. But
they got to eat, though. There was food.
Life's not fair.
There was green foods.
As we learned from this movie, life's not fair. And then we get the whole little scene of them like sleeping at night, and they all go to, they leave Littlefoot, and they are all huddled around Sarah, and then ultimately at the end of the night, they all end up huddling around Littlefoot, and Sarah reluctantly comes over as well. They get attacked by the Sharptooth again, and then they're able to kind of escape from him at first, but then they kind of break off as they argue with each other. They break off a little bit, and then you get that whole scene where Ducky and Spike are stuck. They're kind of by the volcano. They get stuck by the lava, and Petrie gets stuck in a tar pit, and Sarah is being bothered by a group of, I think they called them the Dome Heads. And so you get through all that, and you get to the group is kind of back together again. Petrie learns to fly for the first time, which I always thought that was kind of cute, that he being the flyer that can't fly. Then they decide that they're going to come up with a plan to get rid of the Sharptooth once and for all, and they go through with that plan. And I remember as a kid that just that whole time where they're trying to get that plan going, and then the Sharptooth leaps up on top of the boulder, and I probably freaked out and screamed as a child. And then, of course, Sarah,
and as an adult,
I probably did the same thing. I got very tired. We'll put it that way.
Very tired.
And then Sarah comes in to the rescue, smashes the rock, and they finally kill the Sharptooth, although they think at the time they've also killed Petrie, because he gets dragged down with him. Petrie did not die, though. He came on back, and ultimately, spoiler alert, he didn't die. And we then have Littlefoot kind of walking along on his own, and he sees a cloud that looks like his mother, follows it, and then ultimately the clouds part, and the sun comes down, and we see that they have reached the Great Valley, and all is well and right with the world. So do you remember the first time you saw this movie? Did you see it as a kid?
I saw it as a kid.
Okay.
And I remember enjoying it quite a bit. And I took part in the Pizza Hut promotion and got the hand puppets for all the characters and what have you.
I took part in every Pizza Hut promotion. That's why I'm so well read. I was a champion of the Book It program.
So well rounded?
Well read.
Read.
And well rounded. Because of the Book It program.
Yeah.
Book It.
I blame literacy for my obesity.
Yes.
I like that.
What was it like a personal pizza every like 4 books or some crazy number like that? It was insane.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
It was not appropriate. It was good.
No, it was good. Definitely not appropriate.
Yeah, I enjoyed this movie a lot when I was a kid. As an adult, meh.
Really?
Yeah, I just like. Okay.
Okay.
I didn't feel like there was a lot of story to it.
Okay. It's a very short movie.
I didn't remember how
hour.
short it was, and I did not remember how slowly it built.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had no concept that it took that long to meet everybody.
There's really not a lot that happens either.
For a movie that's portraying what feels like a long journey, there's not a lot of journey. There's a lot of time spent at the beginning, introducing the characters as babies. There's some time spent battling the T-Rex, but you assume that those battles all happen in a short distance, a short space. Not a lot of time is spent actually journeying for a movie that is portraying a long journey. Time dilated in a weird way when I watched that movie as an adult. I don't recall it being that short.
Yeah, I just don't remember feeling as bored with them. I guess that's how I felt with that as I was watching them. I need something
indifferent, maybe,
to happen. Yeah, I was just like, okay,
it was cute. How do you not like Ducky? Yep, yep, yep. I mean, that's fun. I'll always be partial to the big Doofy characters, so Spike's cool. Just because Spike's cool.
I read that his name was supposed to be Bo.
Yeah, well, they would have hit the nail on the head with that one.
Bo Derek. Bo Diddley.
Bo Diddley.
Bo Diddley.
Definitely.
Bo Bridges.
Diddley. Bo Bridges.
Bo Bridges.
Bo Bridges.
Bo Jackson.
Bo.
Bo.
Warbolt.
Bozo the clown.
Bozo.
Yep.
This is taking a weird turn, guys.
Not quite sure where this was going. Do you remember watching it as a kid?
Oh, definitely. Loved it as a kid.
Yeah, that's the thing. I remember
it has
this.
all those amazing, like, you talk about a movie from your childhood and it, like, oh yeah, Land Before Time. And then I watched it and I was like, okay.
Yeah, like,
it's fun. I can whatever.
Wax nostalgic
on
this movie. And then as an adult, like, I don't know, I just put it on and I was like, oh, I don't know what I loved about it as a kid.
Yeah, it's funny because I'd love to try to figure out exactly how old I was, because it was, looking at it through an adult lens, thinking about watching it as a kid, there were some parts I was like, oh, it was kind of dark and scary. Huh. There definitely is. We've watched some animated movies now.
Yeah.
From the 80s over several years. Animation had a darker bent back then when we were kids than I think they get away with now. Or that, whether it's get away with or whether it's a desire to not make things as dark now, I feel like some of the stuff we watched as kids are kind of spooky.
Well,
maybe that explains a few things.
Well, but I feel like in an animated movie, I think a lot of it had to just do with the storytelling that was going on. And you had to pay attention to the story, and I don't think there's as much capability in younger audiences today.
Fair enough.
Whereas you need to have flashier things and faster moving things. I'm going to sound like an old man. When I was a kid,
get off my lawn.
But you definitely have kids now that have no concept of what life was like before instant gratification, where you couldn't download something right away. You couldn't find what you wanted right away. You couldn't get what you wanted right away. And I think a lot of that has killed the patience factor of young people. So, they're not going to be as patient and sit through a movie that has a lot of dark story elements to it for the ultimate payoff.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Now, I did want to ask you guys about Don Bluth movies in particular, because I kind of think of those.
This was coming.
Yep.
God bless it.
Anyway, well, this is for you guys not having a soul anymore and being bored with this movie.
Wow.
Yeah, I went there.
Okay.
Went there. Well, you made fun of me earlier.
Make fun of one man who cries at an animated film.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm not afraid to show my feelings. All right.
It's okay. Just sit there and be tired.
I am tired. So, Don Bluth in particular being somebody who had worked at Disney, became disillusioned with Disney, and left. I think it was about 1979 was when he left Disney because he just didn't like the way the company was being run, to start his own company. And then that's when you got The Secret of Nim, and then I think he had a couple of other things in there. He did the Dragon Slayer video game and Space Ace, and then I guess Dragon Slayer 2 was planned, but I guess the money fell through, or arcades were no longer popular at that point, so it just didn't happen. Then you got American Tail, you got Land Before Time, and he's done a few others since then. One thing in particular with him that I thought was interesting and ironic is just how much he was disappointed at how things went with this movie, with the studio interference of having that 19 minutes cut out of the movie. That he fought to not have that cut out of the movie, and that's what caused him. I think he himself has said this is the start of his creative decline. Was he just got so disillusioned with the amount of cuts that were made to his movie. And the irony to me is that those cuts were made by Spielberg and Lucas. Lucas, who is famous for hating studio interference and people cutting his movies, and so that was a little ironic. But I think of Don Bluth as being like the only competitor to Disney at this point in the 80s. That you have the movies like American Tail, you have the movies like All Dogs Go to Heaven, you've got the Land Before Time. So, do you, in terms of like the 80s and Disney movies and Don Bluth movies, which do you prefer? Do you lean a little bit more towards the Don Bluth movies, or do you lean more towards Disney in the 80s? Because the 80s were kind of a rough time for Disney. We talked Black Cauldron about a couple years ago, and that was kind of the point at which Disney started to make some decisions and try to make some changes before they got to Little Mermaid in the early 90s. So do you lean 80s Disney or 80s Don Bluth?
I'd have to say Don Bluth, just looking at his career real quick on IMDb to confirm his work with Disney. One of my things I'm really bad at is years movies came out. Mm-hmm. I have to look it up usually, so I wanted to see which Disney movies he was around for. Mm-hmm. And the ones he was around for are some of my favorites.
Yeah.
Robin Hood.
Yep.
And...
Did he work on Fox and the Hound?
Not that it's listed here, but the original Rescuers is on his list. Just things that... all-time greats, you know? And so we talk about him in the 80s versus Disney in the 80s. I loved all of this stuff. All Dogs Go to Heaven was awesome. Mm-hmm. Secret of NIMH's great. Although that was I guess that was... Well, no.
It's 81, I think.
Is it? Yeah, 82. Yeah. There we go.
82. Okay.
So I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely Don Bluth versus Disney, American Tail.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good decade for him, but not so much.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to look at the Disney movies from the 80s, but Black Cauldron and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
do you lean Disney or Don Bluth?
Well, I always lean Disney. I love Disney. That being said, American...
You like the D.
I beg your pardon.
The stylized D, their logo. The stylized cursive D, that's part of their logo.
So, as far as Don Bluth movies that I like, I would go with American Tail and Secret of NIMH.
Okay.
I was having an interesting conversation with Katie as Oliver and Company was wrapping up. Mm-hmm. And at what point did the shift in 80s Disney movies happen? Because in 1989, we get The Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Which was an entirely different entity for a Disney movie. And
it was a foray into, not an original story, but it was a foray.
But neither was Oliver and Company.
No, but I think
neither was Fox and the Hound.
Well,
as far as I know.
Well, the meeting where Oliver and Company, our next movie, the meeting where that one was pitched, was where they also pitched. It was after Black Cauldron, and they said, "All right, guys, we need to get our crap together here. Let's pitch some ideas." And this movie was pitched. Was it Rescuers Down Under?
Probably.
Or one of those.
Around the right
and
time.
Little Mermaid were pitched at that meeting. And this is the one, this next one, the Oliver and Company, that's the one they started with.
I think Little Mermaid was when they finally got their traction on the new Disney, because that kicked off. Wasn't the next one? Would the next one have been Aladdin then?
I think it was Aladdin, then
Aladdin, Beauty and the
Beast, Lion King. I mean, that was...
Yeah.
Come on, that was the kickoff.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about...
Your 90s is when Disney really...
What's interesting about it is they went back to good stories that they could make a movie about.
Yeah.
Whereas Black Cauldron...
I
know they had...
I like it.
They had source material, but
yeah,
they didn't... Maybe the source material wasn't as strong as, say, some of the stuff they went back to for Little Mermaid. Fox and the Hound, another one that didn't do as well. I feel like you're it's a good movie, but
I love that one.
But it falls in that same category of the source material wasn't as strong. You said Fox and Hound. I had to do a check in my head to make sure I'd seen it, and then my brain said, "God, that was Disney. I don't even know if I knew that."
No.
little things like that. Of course it was, but I wouldn't have known the difference.
I'm going to very quickly give a quick plug to a friend of mine who has a podcast called Disney Vault Talk.
Good one.
They go through. Have you heard that one?
I've clicked on a couple specific ones, but not like...
They've gone through that. I think they've started from the beginning, and they've run through and they've done every Disney movie. Or they're going through. They're going through every Disney movie, and
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What they do.
But anyway, I mean, the question was Don Bluth or Disney.
Yeah.
And I just, like I said, that was the question came up as we were watching Oliver and Company. Where did the shift in the 80s happen for Disney? I don't know. I'm a fan of the Disney catalog, and always will be. I think I'd be more inclined to put on a Disney movie over a Don Bluth movie, only because I don't think I enjoy as many Don Bluth films as I do Disney films.
Okay.
Like
Even if we narrow it down to the 80s. If we're talking 80s Disney versus 80s Don Bluth.
He's doing the same thing.
I don't feel like there was a ton of successful Disney stuff in the 80s.
And I would need.
Not
we're
for the
going
theatrical
to look
films,
at the list right now, but I feel like Disney had a focus in the 80s. They decided to focus a little more on live action.
Yeah.
Because you have Flight of the Navigator comes out then. You have...
so here's the other thing that Disney has going for it is that they also were doing re-releases. So you still had, in the 80s, Pinocchio getting a theatrical release, Bambi getting a theatrical release, even though those movies weren't 80s movies.
Because I saw all those in the theater, and I don't know how, but that's because they did those re-releases. And I think part of... I wonder if that was it. They were focused on that, and so they didn't really worry about it. So, 1980s.
I think
Herbie Goes
Tale
Bananas
and Secret of Nim would be the only really Don Bluth films.
Great Mouse Detective was an 80s Disney animated.
The animated, Fox and the Hound, The Black
Oliver.
Cauldron, The Great Mouse Detective, Oliver and Company, and Little Mermaid.
Anastasia is a Don Bluth, but now you're talking late 90s. So Don Bluth really didn't have much to offer in terms of the 80s. I think it may be a little unfair to him and his movies to try to weigh them against Disney films. Because like I said, not only was Disney still releasing their own films, but they were also re-releasing and bringing in that audience through re-releasing their older films.
I think I got to go. I think I have to go Don Bluth. If I'm looking at the Disney animated movies that came out in the 80s, the only one that I think, in terms of quality, is better than any of the Don Bluth movies is maybe Little Mermaid. Otherwise, the animated ones that I'm looking at, I'm not thinking about re-releases, just thinking about ones that were produced and created and released in the 80s. I got to go Don Bluth because I like Secret of Nim. I haven't seen it in years, but I like that one.
Movie. The book's even better.
And Between Land Before Time, I've never read the books.
Oh man,
I have to go back and look.
This is Frisbee and the Rats.
Did you ever read the sequel?
I feel like I have, but maybe I didn't finish it because I don't have really the story in my head, but I know it exists.
It wasn't great.
And maybe that's my problem. Maybe I've wiped it from my memory. I feel like I have the book on my bookshelf.
I would read the first one and then leave it at that.
Yeah, it's such a good story.
But I feel like looking at the catalog of the Don Bluth movies versus these maybe 5 or 6 that Disney came out with in the 80s, I think I got to go Don Bluth because of American Tail, Land Before Time. I think All Dogs Go to Heaven was 89.
Sounds right.
89. Okay. Those 3 alone, I think.
It was definitely
and Secret of Nim. So I think comparing those 4 with Disney's 5 or 6, I do love The Black Cauldron. I still really like that movie, but I just think in terms of the overall quality of the movies and my emotional attachment to them, I also tend to leak at the eyes during American Tail.
I am not one normally to suggest anthology episodes, but if we're ever looking for one, an interesting one might be animated Disney up to the point we are at, knowing that if an animated Disney feature film came out, we're probably going to hit it going forward. I don't know if we want to go forward from 1987, or 1988, sorry. But maybe if we need an anthology episode for something special, we look at Disney movies from before this year and take that as a chunk, because that could be an interesting one. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of our childhoods. It's a lot of strong feelings either way. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm looking at this list going, oh, that'd be fun. That'd be fun. Obviously, we'd have to make some decisions about the hybrids, but...
Right.
Still, it might be an interesting...
Yeah.
Episode for the future if we're looking for something different.
All right. Well, I was going to move us on, and we can talk a little bit more about Oliver and Company. Do we have anything else we want to say about Land Before Time before we switch gears over to Oliver?
Bummed that I wasn't as excited watching it, but I'm not trying to take anything away from the movie. I loved it growing up, so...
I was surprised at how much I did enjoy it. Like that, I thought, kids movie. I liked it as a kid. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Mm-hmm. But I was hit right in the feels. All the feels.
Oh, good. So good for you.
Well, let's switch all over. Let's switch all over. I mixed my switch over and Oliver to switch all over. Let's just switch all over.
Mixing your metaphors?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll go over there if you want to go over there. You want to come over this
Chinese
way?
fire drill?
And when the music stops, we sit down. So on 5th Avenue, there is a young orphaned little kitten named Oliver, and he is the last one left when all the other kittens are adopted by people going by. Oliver then kind of gets loose and wanders around, meets a dog named Dodger, voiced by Billy Joel, which I think is smooth talking. He's got street savoir faire.
He does at that.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask him. He tells you about 20 times in that 3 minutes
sing it to you. Mm-hmm. And I vividly remember the commercials for this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. If this is torture, chain me to the wall.
Yeah, exactly. I love that line. My brother and I used to walk around saying that all the time. I think it drove my poor mother insane. We were excited Billy Joel was in the movie, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, and see, we always listened to Billy Joel as kids. Us too. And so that was kind of a big deal, to recognize that when you heard that song come on during the trailer, when it would come on TV, you're like, that's Billy Joel. Like, we knew it right away. We knew exactly who that was.
And then come to find out Oliver was a young Joey Lawrence. That's funny.
I know, yeah.
That is funny.
So Oliver kind of helps. Dodger kind of ropes him in and gets him to help him steal some sausages so he can take him back to the rest of the gang and meet up with a pickpocket named Fagin. And we obviously know that this is a remake or a retelling of the Oliver Twist story, just with dogs.
And cats.
And cats. And then we get...
living together.
Living in cat. Yes. Thank you.
Easy for you to say.
We have the other friends, Tito the Chihuahua, Einstein the Great Dane, Rita the Afghan Hound, and Francis the Bulldog. And so Oliver kind of joins up with the rest of the gang there. And we come to find out that Fagin is, he's having a bit of money trouble, because he had borrowed some money from Sykes, who is a bad dude that's got a couple of pretty nasty Doberman pinchers that walk around with him. And so we kind of get into this whole thing of the animals are trying to help Fagin collect junk, and so they can sell it again, and they're not really very good at it. And so then they try to, I think Winston, not Wilson. He pulls up at one point in his limo, and it's got the little girl in the back, and so they try to get him out of the car and steal the radio, and that kind of begins the little side story of Oliver getting picked up by the girl and taken home, and then they think they have to go rescue Oliver, so they do, and you get introduced to Georgette, the poodle, and something about this movie is different from The Land Before Time is the celebrity voices in this movie. Just, this is one of those movies where they just must have contacted every celebrity they could possibly find. To be like, let's Dom DeLuise, Cheech, Billy Joel, Bette Midler, just pulling in as many people as they can find for this. Okay, so then they get they get to the house and they rescue Oliver, even though he doesn't really want to be rescued. And then that kind of starts the whole plot of them pretending that Oliver has been kidnapped, so that they find out that Jenny's family is rich, and they are going to ransom the cat so that they'll bring some money so that Fagin can pay back Sykes. And then when he finds out it's just a little girl, obviously he has more of a conscience than one would think, and so he decides not to go through with it. But then, and that is kind of a terrifying part of the movie, when Sykes then just decides, fine, I'll kidnap the girl. And we go from a little cute cartoon where we've got a sense of kidnapping a cat and ransoming a cat, and it is kind of cute in a weird way.
But if you remember in Rescuers, wasn't Penny
Right.
kidnapped?
Yeah.
By, what was her name? Madame Medusa?
I think so.
Yeah, sounds right.
And originally this was
I'm not
supposed
sure about
to be...
the bad guy name, but Penny was definitely kidnapped.
And this was originally conceived as a sequel to The Rescuers. That was kind of their original plan for it, which is why she's Jenny. And originally she was going to be Penny. And so then we kind of end the movie with a chase through the streets and into the subway tunnels. And we end up with I think both of the Dobermans end up on the third rail in the subway and get electrocuted. And then we end up having Sykes, as you do with a Doberman. And we end up with Sykes going headfirst into a train. And that's the end of him. And then it ends very happy with Jenny having her birthday party, and her parents are coming back to the United States. And Oliver's going to stay with Jenny, but kind of check in with the gang from time to time. And we'll sing a song, and it's a happy ending. And life's a happy song. So.
And there's... I
thought you were gonna just burst into song. This being our cartoon musical.
To sing along.
There you go. Life's a fillet of fish. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
I love that song. So this one, did you see this one when you were a kid?
I did not.
Did not?
My first time.
most definitely.
Okay.
My first time seeing. I mean, I remember seeing clips. Probably saw, on the Disney Channel.
Yeah.
But I remember my first time seeing it top to bottom was yesterday.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And that was, I thought that I had seen this on home video at some point. I'm pretty certain that I saw it in the theater, because I can't imagine watching this on VHS when it finally came out, because apparently this didn't come out on home video until 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for some reason, they didn't release it, even though it did well. They just didn't release it on home video until 96. I can't picture going and wanting to watch this when I'm 15 or 16 years old in 96. But I knew this movie. I had seen this movie, so we must have gone to see it in the theater at some point. And I vividly remember the TV commercials.
The key here, it says video release.
Mm-hmm. Well, they probably showed it on TV.
I would say the Disney Channel exists by now.
Yeah.
And that was Disney's
That
was Disney's little game. So, because I'm not sure I saw it in the theater either.
Okay.
It doesn't
I
seem
saw it as
like,
a kid, but I don't remember how I saw it.
It doesn't seem like... I don't recall seeing it in the theater. It doesn't seem like something we would have done.
Okay.
But I know I've seen it. And I've seen it several times. And like you, I can't imagine I watched it that much in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a hunch it was a Disney Channel thing. Now, we had the Disney Channel early on because we might have known someone who might have sold those pirate cable boxes back in the day. So we might have paid for basic cable that still had all the premium channels. I'm just saying, they had access to the Disney Channel from a young age. And I have a hunch that was Disney's plan back then, as it was... We're getting this extra cut for this Disney Channel we've created. Why would we put these out on VHS? They paid $12 and buy it once.
Yeah.
You can come here to get it. I mean, that was back. And I think they're still on a little bit of a rolling release calendar. They're still... Like, if I see a Disney movie from my childhood that I don't have on Blu-ray, I'll grab it, because you never know when it's going to be available again. And now with their Movies Anywhere service, you keep your eye on it. I think it's going to be available less and less on a medium you can own.
Yeah.
How often have you double dipped on Blu-rays? Like a movie that you have on DVD, then now it's available on Blu-ray.
On DVD and on Blu-ray, not as much, because there's a whole segment of... I kept a VCR for probably far too long. There's a whole segment of movies, especially Disney movies from my childhood, that I never converted to DVD. So I'm very happy about that, because now I can go straight to Blu-ray. Actually, now I can go straight to 4K if they're making them. But there's a few.
You get a 4K TV.
I have a 4K TV, and now I have a 4K Blu-ray player, too. I'm very happy about it.
Jump right into the movie.
Oh, yeah. It's beautiful. I love it. You know, it looks really good in 4K. Totally off the subject. But Man in the High Castle.
Oh, really?
In 4K. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, the opening sequence just blows you away. You're like, okay, I'm stuck on the couch for an hour. But there are a few, like Die Hard. I think I own the Die Hard trilogy, the original 3, in all 3 mediums. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I have that in a 4th medium because I dipped my toe into the HD DVD pool before Blu-ray 1. So I got slapped on that one. What else do I have?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. I have Star Wars in pretty much every medium that's ever existed.
I have purchased Star Wars in everything from all the VHSs to all the
I have VHS. I have multiple copies of VHS.
I was just curious
DVD
because
and
at some
Blu-ray.
point I had to stop myself from double dipping.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Blu-ray DVD double dip is hard. There's only a few. Like I've definitely stopped myself on a couple. I'm like, that is not an action movie. Who cares if that's HD?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
But there are some where I'm like, well, that's got. I mean, I have to.
How can I not?
How can I not own this in HD?
If I buy something now on a physical medium, I will buy it with the combo pack.
Oh, yeah.
I'll buy
The Blu-ray,
and I always try to
DVD
get it
pack,
where
or-
it's a Blu-ray, DVD, and digital if I can.
Yeah, that is
But-
the ideal.
Yeah.
That is the ideal scenario.
But those are becoming
Harder
less
and
less
harder.
available
Mm-hmm.
because people are realizing what that actually offers, and studios don't want to offer that much convenience.
It's true. I am intrigued. I mentioned Disney's Movies Anywhere service.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even Disney branded anymore. It's just called Movies Anywhere.
No, they just changed it to Movies
But
Anywhere.
the fact that it allows you to connect multiple sources into one app is kind of interesting.
I do like that because I hate.
And they gave you free movies.
They did. They did. I grabbed everything I could.
3 free movies for that.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get to choose. They just
it was
populated movies.
Yeah, it was whatever.
Which prompted me
Big
to
Hero
contact
6
Apple.
and something. Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to happen. I contacted Apple. I said, I just want to make sure I didn't get charged for these movies that are showing up. Why are these here?
Yeah.
And it was a lot of back and forth with Apple trying to, and finally realized this is because it was on this medium, and then you transfer this, and now this was a thank you for combining and using.
Which, by the way, thank Disney. Very few companies have done that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, trust me, they're going to win in the end. But how many companies have given you anything
but
for
some of the
signing
movies
up
I got,
like that?
I got Ice Age.
Right, and Big Hero 6.
I got
and
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, Ghostbusters.
Too bad.
I know, but I'm saying, like, it's something. I'm not saying it's anything great, but it's better than, oh, sorry, too bad, so sad. Like, here's our new service.
Better than the streaming service that DC uses for their digital movies.
Oh, what do they use?
Not Ultraviolet.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible.
I hate.
That is terrible.
I hate, because I had to, when I got the Man of Steel digital version, I had to go get Ultraviolet, but then to be able to watch it on my phone, I had to go get Flickster.
Yep.
And I had to, like, somehow connect Flickster to my Ultraviolet to my bit, and I, like, no. Just no.
Ultraviolet was not great. Actually, the concept of Ultraviolet was fantastic.
But now, it's in my iTunes because of the way that all the companies combined. So all my Ultraviolet digital movies ended up.
I don't somehow have my Ultraviolet movies in there.
Is that Movies Anywhere that was that connection, or was that something else?
I didn't remember Ultraviolet being part of that group.
It must have been because the movies that I got that I had on Ultraviolet are now I can now access through Amazon.
Have you not connected your
Apple
Ultraviolet to Movies Anywhere, maybe?
I thought I looked, and I thought Ultraviolet wasn't included in the group of...
I don't know.
Huh, okay, well, I'll have to go do some exploring.
So that's a lot like Oliver and Company.
That's a lot like
Sure,
Oliver and
sure.
Company. Speaking of companies, Oliver and Company. Yeah, so in this movie, it apparently was successful when it came out. It had
enough star power. I mean, come on, Billy Joel got half the people to show up anyway.
Yeah. Now, watching it this time around, this is one that I have not watched since I was a very little kid, probably around about the time it came out, or if it was on TV at one point. And this one, I kind of have the same feelings you guys might have had about Land Before Time. I was just like, I take it or leave it. I don't know that I'll watch this one again.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought on this one too. Like, okay,
this is very clearly that as we were kind of talking about that kind of in between time for Disney. It's like they had Black Cauldron, which did not do well for them, and then you have this movie, and you can kind of tell that they're, it's kind of like when a sports team goes through a rebuilding year.
Right.
It's like, all right, what do we do?
Here's the thing, though, because so you said that this movie was. The pitch for this movie came up at the same time as they did the pitch for Rescuers Down Under and Little Mermaid. Why were Rescuers Down Under and Little Mermaid so much better developed than this movie?
Well, the animation's different, for one. This is the last Disney movie to use the old copy cell animation style.
But even so, but Little Mermaid took a couple of years to animate as well.
Well, but different style. One of the reasons it took so long was they were still developing that new style.
I don't think that its
feature
I don't
length.
think that its success is based on the style.
The look of it, maybe.
But I wouldn't attribute that to its sole success over Oliver and Company.
Yeah.
There's something about the tonal shift of the storytelling.
I think there's more music in Little Mermaid.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I think the music brings people.
It was the same meeting that they pitched Little Mermaid and Treasure Island in space.
Oh dear God!
It wasn't Rescuers Down Under.
Oh. Thank God that didn't happen. Or
but
did it and I've blissfully missed it?
Maybe. Didn't they do it? Didn't somebody do it, Treasure Island?
In space?
I thought it was Planet Treasure.
Was it Planet Treasure? Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Okay. Well.
But I guess Jeffrey Katzenberg had been wanting to do according to Burgers. Had been wanting to do a live-action adaptation of the musical Oliver when he was at Paramount Pictures. I'm getting this from Wikipedia. And so maybe that's just when those things all got pitched. Somebody was like, hey, we can do this story called Little Mermaid, or we can do Treasure Island in space. And somebody mentions, hey, why don't we do Oliver Twist with dogs? And he's like, done.
Yeah,
Fired up.
I think it's very interesting, though, that same meeting, almost same timeline, and yet Little Mermaid is such a stronger product than Oliver and Company.
Maybe they just want to take their time with Little Mermaid and decide, okay, we're going to take our time with that. We're going to make some changes to how we do our movies. Let's throw this one in and put some star power behind it. In the meantime,
we can discuss that
for Little Mermaid.
The music?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Tim Rice and Alan Menken?
I think so.
Yeah, that might have a little something to do with it.
That probably has a lot to do with it.
I mean, come on, it's Alan Menken for Christ's sake.
Well, and at this point, the Disney movies,
yeah,
when we talk about Little Mermaid,
and the Disney movies at this point still weren't really musicals,
right?
So
I mean, they'd taken a break. Really, this was the first one since '81.
They used to be
right,
and then the shift to stray away from that.
So maybe they just felt like they wanted a little bit more time to adjust their approach. I don't know.
Don't know.
All right. Well, do we have anything else we want to say about Oliver and Company?
I loved it as a kid. I loved it again. I don't know. Something about cats and dogs are cute. I am embarrassed to admit how long it took me to realize that it was Oliver Twist. I know the first few times I saw it, I had no idea.
I mean, as a kid, we would have had no clue.
Even I remember seeing it.
I probably saw Oliver Twist at one point. I was like, oh, they made Oliver and Company, but for adults.
Yeah, I don't know that I made the connection even that quick. It was one of those. It was a bit of an obtuse connection.
Okay.
The character names were there.
Yeah.
But really, after that, you see him, but you don't see him the iconic scenes from Oliver in the orphanage.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
No.
Mm-hmm.
He's in a box.
Right. Say what you will about Fagin, but Dodger's running the show in this movie.
Yeah.
Fagin character is a joke in this movie.
Very much so.
So short of the names, I don't know that people make the connection as fast, but it's cute.
Yeah.
This one doesn't have as much scary, I think, as some of the other animated stuff we've seen recently, but it still has those scenes with the Dobermans are a little rough.
And apparently this one was meant to be darker, but they did, the first draft of this or so was a much darker movie, and they made some cuts and made some changes.
I watched it with my wife, and she'd never seen it, and there was the scene at the beginning where the cat's running through New York and almost getting run over and whatnot, and she looks at me, she goes, why am I watching this? What's about to happen? I'm like, don't worry, it's going to be fine. Meow!
It's Disney. They cleaned it up.
Right, exactly. I'm like, don't worry, you'll be fine.
Do you want to mention that Dom DeLuise, longtime Don Bluth voice actor, skipped Land Before Time to do Oliver and Company instead?
Only time he did a Disney movie, I think. Or at least Disney animated. He might have been in some of the randomness.
And I think is he in nearly every other Don Bluth movie up to the, And this was the only time. Yeah.
And really, it's probably for the best. I'm not sure he fits in Land Before Time.
Yeah, I don't know what character he could have been.
Because I'm sure he's done a serious role once in his life, but I, for the life of me, couldn't tell you what it was.
Rooter would have been less of a sage old dinosaur if it had been Dom DeLuise's voice.
Littlefoot, I tell you, Littlefoot, I don't know what's going on.
Your mom, she's dead.
What are we gonna do?
Never say never, Littlefoot.
Well, I think that's probably going to do it for our Land Before Time, Oliver and Company discussion.
We've been talking a lot.
We have. Yeah. Well, it's at 45 minutes of
New
movie stuff.
Big new movie stuff, man. You know,
So there's a lot of stuff going on. So
Ryan Reynolds and Clue. That's
well,
big
maybe
deal.
next time we can talk about the Han Solo movie trailer
Woohoo!
coming out. Or maybe it'll be the movie coming out. Or maybe the movie will never come out. Maybe Han Solo's going to Netflix.
Maybe with Cloverfield.
Wouldn't that be sad? If the Solo movie goes to Netflix.
No, that's the thing. It won't go to Netflix. It's Disney now.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is honestly my biggest fear right now, with Disney owning this big merger that's happening. It is gonna blow all that out of the water. Now, yeah, Hulu's still around, and maybe there'll be more stuff there. I something about this I will not like when it's all done. I just haven't put my finger on it.
Disney owning your soul.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, think about the franchises they own now.
Between Disney, Amazon, and Google, they're just going to own your entire soul.
I don't trust the mouse is really my problem.
Okay.
I got to be honest. I don't.
I'm interested to see when they finally get their streaming service up and running.
The streaming service up and running. All
What that's
all
gonna
the
look
distribution hurdles of them owning Fox all ironed out. It's going to take a year or two before we're going to see any large impacts on the distribution of some of this stuff, but it will happen, and I have this weird feeling I'm not going to like it.
Okay.
But we'll see.
And then Mickey Mouse runs for president.
Why not at this point? I mean, you know.
If you are a Scottish lord, I am Mickey Mouse.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that's going to do
it. Snivel.
Lord Clarence MacDonald. Okay. All right.
Can't help yourself, can you?
Yes. Is that movie next year? Is it 89? That's 89. Last Crusade? I'm pretty sure that's 89.
That sounds early.
That'll be next year. There's going to be a lot of fun ones next year. But
There's gonna be fun ones.
well, there's every year. We say that every year. So anyway, that's going to do it for our episode with Land Before Time and Oliver and Company. So thank you. Was it 89?
Yeah.
Nice.
Why I doubt you, I'll never know.
Don't doubt me.
Yeah. It's not worth
that and Star Wars Trivial Pursuit. Don't doubt me. The kids deigned to play Trivial Pursuit with me the other day.
God.
And they actually did okay because we enacted some rules that Dad can only answer one question and then has to stop.
That's fair.
So that made it fair.
I mean, if you want to bring those rules to our table, I'll play a game with you.
Amen, right? Let's do it.
I still won, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to do it. So thank you, Bo.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hey, thanks, John.
Thanks,
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat. Dennis?
Dennis.
Good night, Ned. All right. That's
Good night, John Fox.
Yeah. All right, so that's going to do it for us this time. Next time, I think Pat and I are going to try to do an episode of we're still on the Disney Disney train. We're going to do an episode on a TV movie that came out in January of 1988 called Earthstar Voyager from Disney. So Pat and I have been watching that one. Pat has seen it before. I vaguely remember it, but I don't think I ever watched it as a kid. It seems like it's kind of like maybe like a backdoor pilot for a TV series they wanted to do. It's a little bit like a Next Generation for kids kind of deal. So I think Pat and I are going to record one for that. So that'll probably be our next episode that's coming out. And then beyond that, we are going to be jumping on into our next set of movies, which is I had it open, but then it decided not to open. Drum roll, please. There we go. So our next set of movies is going to be, it's February, so it's Valentine's Day. It Might Be Love.
It's my birthday month.
It's your birthday month?
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
I'm going to be 40.
You're going to be, whoa.
I'm only 37, but I'm feeling it.
You're looking it, too.
Thank you. I might as well.
Yeah. It's my age 40. And my waist size are almost exactly the same.
What are we doing, man?
Yeah.
I didn't know you were turning 52.
That's
I just decided what I'm getting you for your birthday.
Knife with kicking the net.
It's going to be a steaming pile.
Yes. I'm not going to tell you what it's a steaming pile of, but...
Well, that'll be the surprise.
That'll be the surprise part of it. Anyway.
I don't want to ruin everything.
No.
All right, so what's coming up next?
So coming up in February, we've got Bull Durham and Working Girl.
Excellent.
We've got The Unbearable Lightness of Being and Wings of Desire.
I have no idea what those are.
Yeah, me neither.
There we go. So it'll be something new for everybody.
I might be busy that week.
I haven't seen... That's fine. If you don't want to broaden your horizons.
Bull Durham and Working Girl is going to be fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah,
and then hopefully,
will be fun.
We'll be able to get in and see Black Panther because Black Panther won by the end of February. And then looking forward again to March, if you're looking way ahead, we've got Big and Twins, or we could just call that episode Big Twins, but that's a slightly different movie.
Yeah.
Jesus.
No, Jesus Comes Later. That's in April with the Last Temptation of Christ.
Yeah.
Sorry. Back to March.
Yeah. March is Big Twins and and then Willow and Child's Play.
That's gonna be a good one.
And then
Willow, you idiot.
You are great. And then Ready Player One at the end of March. So
I've got till the end of March to finish the book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh God.
How far are you?
Working on that.
The first 100 pages.
Okay. That's a good book.
I'm gonna have to cheat on that one and find an audiobook. I don't
Although
know if
I
I
will
get to read it.
I think the audiobook's pretty good. So.
Okay.
Sometimes you get bashed over the head a little bit too much with all the 80s references. You're like, okay,
there are
I get
moments. There are moments where it gets to be a bit much.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay,
When the book
80s,
first started
got it.
off, I was like, "Oh, this is great." He mentions something in every paragraph, and then after I was like,
Oh no, it really is.
"Okay,
every
it's
paragraph.
Every paragraph."
Well, then it's the multiple somethings in every paragraph.
Yes.
Like, oh yeah, I researched this because this movie and this movie and
Yeah.
this movie and then this song and this song. Like, oh, okay, I really understand.
Yeah.
5 pages ago, I was there.
It's a little bit like and I still enjoy the book and I love the book, but it's a little bit like that kid that is like latched onto something that they love and they won't stop talking about it. It kind of gets to feeling like that at certain points.
Kind of
in
like
the
when
book.
Stephanie Meyer learned the word incredulous
Yeah.
she was writing Twilight, and used that word countless times.
I
don't know if she used it correctly every time either. But she felt the need to
you
put it
keep
in there.
using this word.
I do not think what do you think it means?
I just read actually
Big Twins. Big Twins.
Carrie Elwes' book.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
As You Wish.
Yeah. Was it good?
It was fun. I feel like I knew a lot of the information already from different trivia
Behind the
sites
scenes
and
stuff,
whatever. And a little annoyed at how positive he kept speaking of the experience.
Okay.
He would just refer to Rob Reiner as the director, be like the delightful director Rob Reiner, the supportive director Rob Reiner, like, and he would talk that way about
basically
everyone.
he wants to be in the Princess Bride remake or sequel.
Yeah,
is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, it was like, okay,
if you do this again,
like I get that you had a good time and you loved everyone you worked with. That's great, but it's coming on a little strong.
Maybe too strong.
So.
Okay. Well, next time, I think Pat and I will be on for Earthstar Voyager, but then we will follow that up in February with Bull Durham and Working Girls. So.
I don't see Casablanca on the list.
We're gonna do. You tell me when you want to do that.
Well, what are you doing right now?
I gotta go. But anyway, everybody, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. We'll see you next time.
Hey, man, if this is torture, chain me to the wall.
Tito,